I'm so excited that you can make it back all the way for the third episode. I love you for watching and for listening and continue to like and support and follow, which if you haven't done, go ahead and do that now. It's in the top right corner. Just kidding. This week, I have one of my closest friends from over 20 years. Super excited to have Rachel Kang here as the third guest on Pop-Litical Read. Rachel is one of my dearest friends, and she is also a trauma therapist with a very unhinged reaction to pop political moments. So super excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So why don't you give our listeners a little background on how we met?
Well, we were in middle college, which is an alternative program for high school. Oh my gosh, how did we meet? I think we were like love at first sight. Instant friends. Our teachers thought that I was a terrible influence on you.
I think I was probably a worse influence on
I know, but yeah, we became fast friends. Oh my gosh, I think we started like partying together. But you would also get me to school the
her.
next
Yes.
day. So thank you for that.
Rocks at her window to wake her up. She would throw her hair down like Rapunzel. I'll be down in 20 minutes. It's like, girl, it is
Yeah.
9 a.m. We're going to be late for school.
Oh my gosh, I know. I would be out all night and then you would like come drag me to school and I'd be like, I don't want to go. But thank you. Thank you for that.
I think we single-handedly also kept Rockstar energy drinks alive.
Oh my God, I forgot about
I
that.
know. We
Yes.
were the Rockstar trio, you, me, and our friend Melissa,
Oh, Melissa, that's right. Yeah, we stay drinking rock stars.
all day, every day. And I like the original flavor. I don't like the sugar-free. I don't know what if you have like
Mhm.
a preference.
No, the original.
The original is the best one.
We had like those triple size
So did.
original rock stars and with
Probably why I have heart trouble to this
well
day.
yeah, and also the cigarette. Yeah, yeah, no, that's back then.
So many things to talk about this week. So many things that happened. Why don't we just kick off with this sensation that's been happening lately around sequels. And I don't know if it's like lack of creativity or if they think that millennials have had the shit beat out of them in the last since our lives have been created. So if we need nostalgia, but just like to kick us off and like ground us, Devil Wears Prada is obviously filming. Let's do a little side note on this too. How do you feel about all of the video releases and paparazzi shots. Like, do you want to just wait until the movie comes out, or do you want all these snippets along as they're filming?
I feel like the snippets are what pulls people in.
You think so?
I think so.
I feel like I've been
Yeah.
seeing like a lot of discourse online where people are like, I just want to wait until it comes out. Like, I don't want to see all the behind the scenes of Anne Hathaway of them color Anne Heche recipe. I haven't seen Emily Blunt's yet, which I'm really excited for because
Hmm.
I love Emily Blunt.
I know I
She's
love
like
her.
amazing. Do you think that we really need a sequel of Devil Wears Prada? Or like it ended so beautifully. Do we need to like open that act back up again?
I mean, do we ever really need sequels to good movies?
I mean, I think there are times where we can continue the story, but I think there's times where we should just like
Let it
leave
be.
that beautiful memory.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we need a sequel for Devil Wears Prada.
And then we also have Bend It Like Beckham and My Best Friend's Wedding.
What would a sequel even entail? Like the
I don't
life,
know.
like her with her boo?
I mean, I guess, like, do I really care? Like, I don't even remember the story.
Have people even seen the first one? Like, I love that movie personally, but
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know about Bend It Like Beckham.
Well,
Maybe they should.
apparently enough people know about it to bring it back for another
Mhm.
movie. I mean, here's one Freaky Friday. Like, I'm excited for that one, Freakier Friday. I think that's going to be really cute. I'm
I
loving the
bet.
Lindsay Lohan, like Lohan songs, the Renaissance, whatever people are calling
Oh
it.
my God, she looks so good
She
now.
looks, I mean, it's all quote unquote lemon water, which we know it's like,
I
girl,
mean, I don't know. Whatever she's doing is working for her because she was
amazing.
not looking good for a
No,
minute, but she
just
looks,
stunning.
yeah, she looks so good.
So good. So happy too and
I know.
healthy. And
Yeah.
like my little like millennial teenage heart is just like I'm dying.
That's
Like
so
this recent press tour, she's wearing all outfits that reference back all the way to Parent Trap and to the original Freaky Friday.
Oh, that's
Cute little
yeah.
nostalgic moments like that I'm totally fine with.
Mm,
But it's just like really like my best friend's wedding, like just put Julia Roberts in anything else, literally anything else. But at this point they're gonna bring somebody back from the dead to make a sequel. Like
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah. Agreed.
I don't know. I'm so confused by it. Okay, so let's talk about something maybe a little bit more intense. You ready for it?
Oh my God, I'm ready. You know I'm ready. It's my
So
favorite.
let's talk about this. If y'all haven't heard, Columbia University settled with the Trump administration for a $221 million settlement. That was an Austin Power reference, in case you couldn't see me on video. And there's a ton of conversation online, in politics, in academia about what does this mean? What does it set as a precedent? Essentially meaning our universities, which have historically been separate from government interference and overreach, will they now be have to capitulate to them and have to have standards from them? And the reason why Columbia is saying that they settled is that there was like $1.3 billion worth of government grants on the line. So their thing was we had to make a settlement without admitting fault around anything in order to get access to things like funding for cancer research. So that was kind of like their statement around it. In the exact details is a conversation around anti-Semitism, and a lot of people are saying that's actually not what happened. They were just pro-Palestinian protesters. And so in the agreement, they have to like basically enforce that there is someone to look out for Jewish students. There has to be an entire council. So it's really, they're talking about government overreach. And now Brown University, Penn University have also settled in a similar agreement with the government. And Harvard is also settling in looking to settle towards a similar agreement. So as someone that teaches in universities, as someone that is in the mental health space and doing a lot of research, like what do you feel about this?
I feel like it's disturbing. I feel like, I don't know, colleges should, educational systems like should be a place where people are free to develop ideas and advocate. When government interferes with those spaces and creates policies that limits it, I feel like it kind of goes against, the purpose of education and what education can do. There's, I don't know, I feel like I think about college as a place where people can grow their ideas and be liberated in that way. I don't know. I feel really disturbed by that. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that the government can receive payment from educational institutions. Like I'm still trying to understand like how can that even be possible?
Yeah, how does it work? Like who
Yeah,
like
who
do you
received it?
yeah, do you Venmo them? Is there like a US government
But
Venmo
how is that
account?
okay?
I don't
I,
that's what I think is really confusing
Mhm.
and concerning. And I think it's to your point, it's like when you're in college, this is the time for debate. It's the time for a shared ideas. If we go back into the 60s and the 70s and the Vietnam War and the protests, like
Right.
universities and campuses and students, like this is the hallmark of that, right? This was like the youth saying, no, we're not moving, we're not okay with that. We are going to put our stamp on it. And but now when the youth of our generation does it against Palestine and about, the war between Israel and Palestine, then all of a sudden the government's like, well, then you're not going to get money from us.
That's wild. The
It's
government.
censorship,
No, it
right?
absolutely
Yeah.
is. They're controlling the narrative, and that's so disturbing. They're saying, we're not going to give you funding, and it's like I feel like it reminds me of like emotional manipulation techniques when someone like withholds something
Yeah.
when, yeah, it's like almost like blackmail, right?
Yeah. It's like your parents saying, well, I don't support your lifestyle, so I'm cutting you off.
It's
Yeah.
very, oh, it's conditional,
Yeah. It's
right?
like,
It's
yeah.
conditional where I feel like the government should not be able to put those conditions on educational institutions.
No, it's not a separate department of the government. It is
Right.
a private institution. It's an academic institution. It's an academic world. They have really no say in that, and yet they're putting those conditions on it that you cannot get access to US taxpayer funding. It is absolutely wild and really terrifying. And that this is now looks like a template for other universities in which to how to operate and deal with the current administration.
Right. Which I don't know. I feel like so disturbed by that, that the government can come in and control a narrative and use funding to do so. It's horrendous. There should be separation. Also, I feel like the conversation should be around that piece is how much are we allowing the government to control? I mean, I feel like with these big name universities kind of for lack of better terms, like bowing down to it.
Uh,
I feel like that contributes to the state of like uncertainty and unrest that a lot of people are kind of feeling right now.
yeah, I mean, imagine if you're looking at Columbia University and Harvard and these huge monoliths and powerful institutions, and you are Cabrillo College in Northern California, or if you are a small startup multimedia company, if these huge corporations, these huge institutions, which have so much power, so much influence, resources, lawyers, if they're capitulating, then what does it mean for those that are smaller, that don't have the same access to resources or
Right,
power? What do they do? Like, this doesn't set a great path forward for them or
right,
confidence that we can exercise the First Amendment.
right.
I mean, it goes back to the conversation we were having last week around Stephen Colbert and Paramount, and it's like,
Hmm.
it's just emblematic of the times, and it's really reflective of, Trump's fascist tendencies and his
Hmm.
dictator tendencies. And what do you think that the rest of us should do? I mean, I'm not putting it on you to like speak for
Yeah.
America, but just your personal opinion around like,
Well, I'm just like thinking about it, and one of my specialties is working with personality disorders, and
yeah,
I,
what do
I'm
you
I'm just like I'm thinking about the level of narcissism that just exists within our systems right now, and one of the worst things that you can do with narcissistic behavior is reinforce it, right? And give into it. Now, I feel like there's a lot of power in people. And I think historically, like that's how we've seen shifts socially, changes, etc. Which is what I tell my students when they're really overwhelmed and feeling hopeless. So I feel like, I don't know, it's disappointing that these universities, I can understand why they're giving in, but I also feel like how powerful would it have been for them to stand up and say, no, we're not doing that, and we're all aligned on that. It hurts me whenever I see these behaviors. That's how I'm kind of viewing this, right? It's like Trump is just kind of going ham on the world and we're all just giving into it. So we're reinforcing that.
Yeah, and even to that point, they put greater restrictions on international student eligibility. So I
Mm.
think that further
Oh,
alienates us as a place to bring in more innovation,
right,
perspective,
right,
bringing more people to the table. I think it's a sly way to really try to put this, Christian nationalist idea into education. It's a way to
absolutely.
cut us off. It is a way to really just whack these universities right at the knees. And yeah, you lose confidence. Where do you look to find confidence in our society if our institutions, which are designed to open up our minds and
Hmm.
to really exercise different points of view so that we become more of human beings as we step into the world and as we step into lead organizations in a capitalist society, and as we're going back and creating politicians and representing communities, you now have a more limited view on how you should interact with disagreement.
Right. Which I think is a goal,
Right?
right?
Terrifying.
It is terrifying. Um,
How do we process that?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think I'm still
Like,
processing.
the implications are absolutely insane, and I don't think it's getting enough attention because even as you and I were discussing it,
Right.
it's very complicated to like unpack all the layers because it's really easy to say like, oh, what the Trump administration is doing is so bad.
Mm.
But then if you actually look, there was some basis for what the universities were doing, which wasn't so great either. Otherwise, they wouldn't have settled, right? There was some type of data there or evidence there to support
Was
that
it
they were,
though?
yeah, they were doing some kind of
Oh,
um, misrepresentation on the way they were soliciting funds from the government at the same time.
oh, Jesus.
So there's a lot to like unpack and digest, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we both also use ChatGPT to like help filter through the analysis a little bit because
yeah,
things can be super overwhelming, and but I think that's one of the cool ways that AI can
yeah.
actually help us to be like simplify this and make sense of it so that we can come on a podcast and like have a regular human conversation about
I think that's a really good point that you're bringing up. And I think that the development of AI recently has been scaring a lot of people, but I do think that's one of the best ways to be informed. And I think I'm thinking about your question earlier about how do we process this. And I think there's so much power in knowledge. And the groups that Trump essentially targets are the ones that are uninformed,
it.
right? The uneducated, they're the ones that are easily swayed. They don't have all the information. And so I'm thinking, if there is hope, which I always believe that there is, like, I'm a therapist, I have to believe there's hope. I do think that yeah, resources is going to be really helpful. Things like ChatGPT, the internet, social media. I mean, God, do you remember when we were growing up? All of this didn't exist, And so I feel like there's so much power in these future generations because there's so much more access to information and you can essentially educate yourself, right? And so although our administration right now is trying to limit and you're right, kind of control the narrative and have it be very like homogenous. I think there's so much opportunities to expand our knowledge just through, I don't know, like social media alone, right?
Yeah,
Kids are so much more informed, much more inclusive. I think a lot of things that weren't normalized for us, mental health being one of them,
yeah,
that is one of the benefits of things like social media and ChatGPT. It normalizes a lot of which I don't know was controversial before, right? And a lot of times people resist or project their insecurities because they aren't exposed, to whatever they're afraid of, right? So a lot of times people just like act out of fear. Trump is really good at kind of, creating that narrative and really poking at the insecurities of people and having them project out. And so I think that, yeah, that's one of the ways that we can kind of resist and fight back is through educating ourselves, educating others, and giving access to resources. I think that's what really brings people together.
I think that's a really amazing, and I don't want to simplify it, but there are ways to make it simple. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
idea, even I just think of myself, like I think we all spend a lot of time on social media, and maybe I'm projecting, but I spend a lot of time on social media. I follow a lot of like therapists or motivational speakers. I know that sounds like really cheesy, but you do get some micro learning even out of like quick 30 to 45-second video. And then it kind of like clicks on something in your brain to, critical thinking or like, how should I approach this situation?
Mhm.
Maybe, oh, that resonates with me. I want to like dive deeper into that. And I think that's another element of positivity. If you're following the right type of people or the right type of resources, and your algorithm will change to that.
Right.
So I think that like this idea that social media is all good or all bad, I think is true and false because I think you have the opportunity to train the algorithm to show you what you want to look for.
Right.
The danger is if you go down a rabbit hole, then you really get stuck down there. And I think that's the downside, especially with lack of regulation around AI, around social media, which ties back into capitalism and people wanting to make their monies. But I think that if you use it the right way, you can provide yourself a lot of information and various viewpoints. You just have to really be open to that
Mhm.
because you will hear things that you may disagree with, but that is a good thing. That's what makes our society open and free and unique and allows us to have growth, which is why we have good friends, right? When you have a good friend, they'll tell you, like, girl, you're wrong. And like that's really helpful. And sometimes we don't like it, but it is a really good thing for us to have.
Absolutely. I think having like multiple perspectives is very powerful. I mean, that's one of the like number one things that I help my clients with is being able to hold your perspective and then also hold multiple other perspectives at the same time.
So, speaking of mental health, speaking of the Trump administration, speaking of resources, what do you make around lack of funding and cutting on? We were just talking about access to mental health resources,
Mhm.
which so many people are struggling with mental health in the environment that we're in because every day you wake up, there's a tsunami warning, there's potentially World War III, there's multiple wars going on in in the world,
Mhm.
there's tariff battles. Like that can be really scary. I think that a lot of people have like switched off watching the news since
Mhm.
the last election because it's overwhelming, it's terrifying. You feel very small that you don't have a lot of say in what can happen, and it could be really scary. So you just kind of bury your head in the sand. But it doesn't mean that it's not still living within your body, right? Like trauma
Right.
lives not only in our mind, but physically in our body.
Yeah, absolutely.
What should we do about that? What are your thoughts around these like cutting of mental health resources, Medicaid resources, SNAP? Like, what do you make of that?
Oh my God.
I know that was like
Like,
a real big question, so
no,
take
I
any
mean,
piece of it you want.
no, I mean, it's just bringing up such a visceral reaction to me. I mean, I told you earlier, but I'll share the story that in my treatment team meeting yesterday, we were literally, thinking about resources for a client who's, suffering from trauma. And I was like, okay, well, they don't have any income. Like, can we connect them with SNAP or, any type of disability? And the question came up of, well, what's available still? Is that one of those things that got shut down? And I literally like just I wanted to scream. What do I make of it? I mean, I'm horrified. I feel like these things, I don't know. I'm trying to, be hopeful because I feel like we have to be right now. But I think that people are already struggling. You're right. You made a really good point with their mental health. And then you limit, I was also thinking about this, like people are struggling with their mental health. Economy is tanking. No one can afford mental health treatment
Mhm.
is a thing that's coming up, right? Everywhere is slow right now, treatment centers, private practice, et cetera. And so I don't know. I just kind of feel like what we're witnessing is collective trauma just being developed, over and over again.
And how does that manifest when you're thinking about we're all building collective trauma right now? What does that manifest in 5 years, 10 years? Like, how does it present itself when that trauma is like living in your body and you don't have a way to filter it, process it, heal it? What
Mm.
happens next?
Like as an individual or as a
As
society?
either or.
On an individual level, the really interesting thing about trauma is that people are really resilient. The brains are a really fascinating thing. I mean, people will dissociate in order to survive and function. The scary thing about that is untreated trauma, if not processed, eventually it will impact. So, one of the things I recently learned is that a lot of times what you'll see is people who have dissociated enough to just kind of function in the world, and then in old age they might have something that's a stressor, and then like all their trauma comes flooding out, and that could look anything like a psychotic episode. It can look like severe, it can look like catatonia. And I think that's the part that's really scary, is that I feel like, when you're older, a lot of people are being, diagnosed with like Alzheimer's or dementia, but some of it is, yes, that, and some of it is unprocessed trauma that's coming out, and the brain is like, you know, we can't handle it anymore.
And then you think about potentially Social Security is going to be gone.
Oh my God.
It's being cut. So then what happens when you have all of these, physical manifestations of repressed trauma
Right.
trying to express themselves, and we don't have any resources to deal with them as they're developing, and then we don't have any resources to deal with them when they have developed and
Yeah.
we're no longer working, and maybe our kids or our family also don't have the access to resources to support you.
Right.
We're just going in a fucked manner in society. Like, let's just put it bluntly. Like, that's really scary.
It's scary. And I feel like this is such an important conversation, right? Because I think that although people can kind of dismiss mental health, it's impacting all of us as a collective, right? So even if you're looking at one individual and you're like, okay, well, whatever, we can cut them off from resources, like it's, we're all connected, right? So societally, we're going to be impacted by that. And I think that sometimes people, uninformed people, right, they don't understand that piece of it. I think that it's very easy sometimes, especially if you hold power and privilege to kind of be sucked in
in
your
your bubble.
privilege bubble, not understanding it's going to impact you too.
Yeah, and I think that it limits us as a society again, right? Because that person that could be struggling with a mental health crisis could be the next Bill Gates. It could be the next Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, Meta, whatever. Like it could be the next brilliant genius, which genius and mental health sometimes go on a sliding scale, depending on if you have the access to resources to guide you in one direction or the other. And that could limit us from future growth and exploration in our society, especially as we're putting all these tariffs and other things going on. We're isolating ourselves. We're not working with our partners as closely as we used to. They can see this as an opportunity for another country to rise and take over, the spot as quote unquote the number one most powerful country, which has happened a million times in society. So like it eventually is gonna happen. But I just think about these are some of the financial implications, or these are some type of the societal implications that can happen, like let alone the human cost and toll. I mean, I just think about the recent cutting off of the LGBT suicide hotline from federal government
Oh, my
in a
heart.
time
I
where
can't.
LGBT youth are the number one most vulnerable to homelessness. And then when you're homeless and a youth, that's going to immediately lead to potentially self-harm. And then you limit that access to free federal resources. And it's hateful and rooted in lack of understanding, lack of empathy, and just hatred.
I know my heart hurts like thinking about that, especially we were talking about that earlier, the high suicide rates and how it triples with trans youth. And yeah, I guess like that's a really good way to put it. It is so hateful. It's rooted in a lot of ignorance, and it's leaving more vulnerable populations more vulnerable. Where's the line?
There is no line.
I line.
The limit does not exist right now. Like the limit of evil and hatred, there's literally no.
But I think that's why that's the fear, right? That there is no limits. And we kind of started out talking about that. We started out talking about how educational institutions are now bowing down to the government. And like, yeah, these are limits that were in place for a reason. I always think about that as well, where I'm like, isn't the government supposed to be a checks and balance system? Kind of feel like the executive branches take it.
Which is so fascist. It's
It's
just
so
cold. I mean, like Congress literally is shutting down because they don't want to talk about Epstein files that relates back to Trump. So they're like, nothing to see here. We're just going to shut down the entire government. We are going to cut off access to resources because Trump doesn't like it.
oh
And then
my
it's
God,
like,
I know.
then the court system is trying to push back. And then I just heard recently that a couple of immigration judges were fired because they pushed back on some of these, not even pushback. I heard a correction around this idea of like judges pushing back recently because that's like a false way to describe it. They're upholding the rule of the judiciary is to uphold the law. So when the government is trying to bypass the law or trying to violate the law, it's not a pushback. It's literally they're doing their job at
Mhm.
holding the line and saying the law is the law.
Right, as they should.
But then they can be fired if they don't have like the right tenure, if they're not, et cetera, et cetera. Which is even it's just another way. It relates back into the societal impacts and the cultural impacts, the financial impacts. If you're getting rid of people that are coming willingly to this country or fleeing famine or fleeing war, which we probably had a part in the fact that their country is going through war, through famine. And then now we're kicking them out and we're sending them to countries that they're not even from. We're limiting our own growth, our own development. This country is built on the back of immigrants.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, do you not know who you are, baby? Let's talk about trauma. Like you're not even reflecting yourself in the mirror anymore.
Back to narcissism. It's
So
like an illusion. And I think that I just, the more and more I see that, I think that's the most disturbing piece of it is like they're controlling the narrative by making things so conditional. if you don't align with me, then you get fired. That's wild. That goes against
Yes.
everything our country was built on,
Yeah.
right?
And they did it with lawyers in the Department of Justice. If you don't agree with the policies and the direction, like maybe you're out. Like, not cute. Okay, let's do a palate cleanse. What are you watching? Any shows you're watching, any movies you're watching that you're like gagging over, you're loving right now? Everything we just talked about.
This is gonna sound so bad, and I know my therapist says I need to stop doing this, but I feel like a lot of what I read and watch has to do with therapy. So I listened to this audiobook of someone who treated a DID patient. And yeah, so how I disconnect is by walking and listening to someone else doing the work that I do.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with your therapist. I'm gonna say it's probably not healthier to go deeper into the tunnel.
So fascinating, though. I
But you,
love hearing about other people working and doing their healing. Oh
yeah.
my God, love it.
I
Love
will
it.
say, and I think you know this, and if y'all don't know this about me, I have been on a campaign to get everybody to watch couples therapy on Showtime with Dr. Orna. Shout out to Dr. Orna. I think she's fucking brilliant, and I love
Mm,
watching her. And it's kind of similar to what you're talking about. Like, I love the process of how
hmm
it's almost like dating in the beginning. You're getting to know them, you're trying to understand how you can support, what the diagnosis would be. And then it starts more of a developed relationship. You've been seeing somebody a while, now you feel more confident to share your opinions and viewpoints and redirect. So like the process of it is super fascinating. But I just think as if you are someone that is doing that yourself, like you are the therapist, at some point you have to turn your brain off so that it's
hmm
not operating on 10
Yeah.
time. And I think that a lot of us tend to do that. I think people that are in business like listen to TED Talks on the way to work, or
hmm
like
hmm
people that are in beauty follow a lot of beauty influencers so that they try to better understand the trends. And like, I just wonder from a therapist point of view, like, does your mind need time to turn off, or
Yeah.
like as running with the lights on all the time, is that healthy?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
I think anything in extreme is not
Yeah.
healthy. It's all about mediation. I mean, no. I mean, I feel like that applies to anything and everything. I mean, sometimes you're gonna have like ups and downs, but yeah, I don't want to do anything to the extreme. I know I can be a little bit extreme, so I need to start
I think we
practicing
all
what I.
can.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone also has their own like ways, it sounds like some people have shows and movies they decompress to. I do a lot of like exercising and walking, so yeah, everyone has their own thing. I think the no one can function like on all the time.
It's why people burn out, right? Like they
Mhm.
work at just such a high velocity, and then it's like when they're in comatose, they're like shut down, like
Mhm.
phones on do not disturb. You're really trying to decompress because you just don't have an option. Like you literally the battery just like is out. What would you say is like if you had to give two tips to someone that doesn't have the resources for
Mm.
mental health? What is like one or two things that they can do to operate in a better clarity, disconnection, self-healing? Like what would be like your one or two tips?
One or two tips for someone who doesn't have access to mental health.
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna sound really crazy and I feel like a lot of therapists are gonna be mad at me for saying this.
Ooh, I love a controversy moment.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of fear in the therapy world right now that because there's people are saying that they can replace therapists with ChatGPT. You can't do deep trauma work with ChatGPT, but I do think, and I'm all for people having access to anything that will be supportive for them. I think ChatGPT can be really helpful for kind of like basic like CBT, DBT, it's really validating.
Cognitive behavioral therapy and
Dialectical behavioral therapy, like identifying distorted thoughts, reframing those thoughts, receiving validation. I think it's really good for that. Like I said, I don't think you can do deep trauma work with ChatGPT, but I think it's a great resource, especially in times right now where people can't afford mental health and everyone's struggling with mental health issues. And I think, having self care, having connection, I think one of the biggest things that comes up if you're exposed to trauma is isolation, right? I mean, that is like the biggest reinforcer of someone who's going through depression or anxiety is isolating. But when you're struggling, what do you want to do? You don't want to connect, you want to isolate.
no, you want to hide. You don't want anybody to see you. You don't feel like yourself. You feel gross. The
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is also make yourself more vulnerable. You don't want
Right.
people to see that side of you, which we all have that side. It's you. You are that side. Like it's your body saying, well, I actually do need help
Right.
versus don't help me. Uh, and I think that's probably why long-standing friendships are so powerful because
Mhm.
those friends will not let you be pushed away. They really want to pull you and support you and
Mm.
take care of you while also giving you space and boundaries. Speaking just about boundaries, I know like this is like another like I feel like sometimes people take boundaries as like a controversial thing. How do you?
Why?
Yeah, because
I
they
need to
feel
hear. Wait,
like
why? Really?
yeah, so people feel like, well, how dare you talk to me like that? Or that was rude that you told me that you don't have the energy for that. But I think boundaries, like I like to say no is the most powerful and complete word in the English language.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't have the bandwidth to be able to provide communication to someone professionally, family, and personal relationships with your partner. I think that that communication around your boundaries is so important, but a lot of people don't understand what a boundary is and
Hmm.
how to enforce it when it gets pushed on. Like
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of people will just say, okay, well, fine, I can do that. I can take on that extra project. I'm working two jobs, going to school, but yes, I can pick up your niece from soccer practice that I've never met. Like, how do you talk about
Mm.
boundaries and like how that actually also can like affect our mental health?
Oh my gosh, I literally do a group on boundaries. Yeah, I mean, boundaries is everything. I think that it's very difficult for a lot of people to set them. I think you're bringing up a lot of really great points in that sometimes people don't know what their boundaries are. So I think even identifying the boundaries, and so we want to think about boundaries as something that you're informing the other person of what your limitations are. Sometimes people, based on childhood or whatever, or attachment stuff, like they might feel like, what do you mean? I don't have limitations, right? I'm always flexible. I'm always ready to go. But what I always tell my clients is that you'll know when a boundary is being crossed because your body will tell you. So even if you feel cognitively that you can handle something, there will be an indicator, right? Are you dissociating? Are you getting anxious? Does something irk you? Are you getting, I don't know, sometimes people are really disconnected from their bodies,
Mhm.
and sometimes somatic symptoms will come up anyways. You
Yeah, and
get
like a
stomach
feeling of
aches.
resentment can happen too, right? When you
Absolutely.
feel like your boundaries are being violated, even though your words that are coming out are saying, "Yes, I can do it," you can actually build up resentment in the meantime.
100%. Yeah. D This is a little also controversial with my clients. I talk a lot about it kind of keeps you in that victim place, right? Where you're sacrificing your boundaries, but you're not taking accountability for protecting yourself. And so when you resent someone else, you're keeping yourself in a place that's continuing to be victimized, right? Whereas if you step out of the victim role, it gives you an opportunity to step into a creator or an author role, creating your own story. And that part is really important to not only keep others accountable, but keep yourself accountable as well.
I love that because I think that we have a tendency to put on a record about ourselves and we tell ourselves the same story over and over again.
Mm.
And oftentimes someone else is the author of that story, but we keep playing
Oh,
it over and over.
yes.
So the opportunity to break that record, take out a pen, take out your laptop, take out your note section, and rewrite your own narrative,
Yeah.
okay with that and even good about that, I think is a transformational step. And I think it allows you to show up in a completely different way for yourself and for your community. And like,
I think it's really empowering,
yeah,
especially the way that you said that. You're taking your power back from the person you feel victimized by and you're putting it back in your court. Can it be scary? Yes.
100%.
Yeah. And I think that something else really important to point out is that when people set boundaries for the first time in relationships, a lot of times, like, there will be pushback because relationally, like, we have a dynamic. And so when you set a new boundary with someone, you're shifting that dynamic. And so there might be a rupture, but it does create opportunities to have new standards. So you're creating like you're investing in a more authentic connection by doing that, despite the temporary rupture. A lot of people won't set boundaries because they're scared of the rupture. They don't want the rupture at all. But then in doing so, you're kind of preventing yourself from having the opportunity to have a deeper connection with this person.
Yeah, it sounds almost like skincare. Like when you have like a breakout or you have something you don't like about your skin and you start using a new product to change it, sometimes you get like purging and like all the shit comes up from your skin and you're like, well, I'm just gonna stop using it because clearly it's making me break out.
Oh, that's a
But
good
it's actually
point.
you're like regenerating and starting over, but the only way out is through. I think
Ooh, I love
using
that. I'm gonna use
cosmetics
that.
is
Yes.
like it's uncomfortable at first, right? Like you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, you're creating a new version of yourself, you're shedding the skin of your old snake and bringing it to your new body. And I think it's like the awareness that's like a process of it is, I
Mhm.
think, is really important so that you know where you're at in that journey. Because if you don't know where you're going, sometimes it's really scary.
Absolutely. And I also think it helps you connect with yourself because if you think about what it feels like when your boundaries are violated and you don't say anything or you don't set that boundary, there's this aspect of self-abandonment that comes in. You're abandoning yourself and your needs to meet the needs of the other person. And so when you identify what your needs are and set boundaries to protect them, then you're connecting with yourself as well, right? You're not abandoning yourself, you're showing up for yourself. I always like tell my clients, I'm like, I know as an adult, we don't think about it like
Yeah.
this, but think about like your inner child, right? When you don't set boundaries, you're abandoning the needs of your inner child.
That
Yeah,
poor
I
baby.
know, right? So sometimes they're like, okay, like it's scary to set boundaries for me, but when I think about who I'm protecting, which is my younger me, then I can do it.
And I think it's just so funny too, because I think that if it's someone else, we're willing to, I think of like a mom, like all these stories of
Mm.
like a mom saving her child that like can have the strength to pick up a car,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
it's like all this adrenaline, all this power that comes out of nowhere. But when it's about ourselves, we don't think that we're either worthy of it or we're incapable of it. But when we think about protecting someone else, even it's like another version of ourself, all of a sudden this strength comes out. And I
Oh,
think that's like
yeah.
insane,
Great point.
sad and beautiful. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy or a Victorian tragedy or something. You know what I mean? Like it's you all of a sudden like you but how do we get to see ourselves as that valuable person to want to save ourselves and to see ourselves worthy of the boundary and of going through the process?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking about even like my own journey with that. I think it's, I think really kind of reflecting and thinking back to what your needs were that weren't met. I think even just starting to identify what that was, not in like a resentful lens, but kind of like oh, can I acknowledge and validate my own experiences? I think a lot of people kind of go through life without receiving that validation or having that not neglected or acknowledged. So I think sometimes, I do a lot of parts work with IFS, which is internal family systems, and connecting with parts of us that we all have and really kind of validating our experiences is really powerful. So I think even just a small exercise might just be like, okay, well, when you were a kid, like, what did you like to do? Right? How did that change? Why did that change? Who did you have to show up for? And like kind of reflecting on that and then really acknowledging what did you need at that time? What
Yeah.
did you need to hear?
That was so good. I feel like that is such a deep work, but it's something you could do on your own time, something that feels manageable.
Hmm.
You're getting ready, a couple of thoughts come to your head, you pop it in your phone, you have your notepad by your pen or your notepad by your bed at night, and you're like, yeah, I remember Rachel just saying, like, what did I need as a kid? And it will pop into your head. And just think about that list as you go on in the next couple of weeks and just kind of reflect back on like what would I want now based on what I needed then and like how does that change how I want to show up and who
Yeah.
do I want to be when I look in the mirror? What tools would I want to give myself now that I can? And I think we just don't take
Mhm.
that time for ourselves and that would be I think a really great toolkit to have.
I love how you said that. Like, well, if you think about it, like, yeah, that part, right? Like now that I can, I think if you're growing up not realizing if you have needs that aren't met, I think the biggest distinction as an adult is acknowledging and recognizing how things have changed. And that's how you can hold your inner child and your younger experiences. Is that I did not get that love when I was growing up, but I can now provide that for myself. Back to the empowerment piece. Now I'm an adult, I have abilities, I can provide this for myself. I'm worthy.
Yeah, and I think like to bring it all together, I think the more that we can take care of ourselves, the more we can feel empowered, the more we're willing to show up for our community, and the more willing that we are to reach out to organizations to show up in a bigger way, because now we feel empowered within ourselves and we're
Mhm.
not reacting out of hate. We're starting to be proactive with love. And I think that that just makes us all better citizens and better communities and better friends, because I think that's what's important. Like, not to sound like a hippie, but like love is so important, and love for yourself and love for your for your neighbor. And like, you don't have to be best friends with your neighbor, but like having respect for them and like human decency
Yeah.
just makes us a better community, makes us less hated by the world.
Well, yeah, no, I was thinking about that. It's human connection. That's one of the biggest things that's going to save us during these times is connecting with others. I think there's so much power in numbers. I think that's how we've made movements in the past. That's how we've resisted. That's how we've made changes. I mean, my gosh, I love seeing people connect, and stand up for each other. And I love watching videos where people are like, I don't know, those social experiments where they step in for each other and step in for a stranger. But I think through these times, historically, no matter what was happening, like we've survived as humans because of human connection. And I think that's really there's a lot of power in that. So I think we have to continue having talks like this and advocating and utilizing our resources so that we can maintain that connection.
So speaking of connection, I don't think anything brings people together quite like alcohol. So Rachel, tell us, what we have a tradition on this show as part of what I like to call the Culture Caucus, which is like all of us collectively together. But each of our
Oh,
guests
it's cute.
bring a drink of the week, a drink that they think either represents their week or week in culture. What drink represents the insane Mercury Gatorade, as Rory was saying last week, that is going on? I definitely know that I've had a Mercury Gatorade week.
Oh my God, me too. Don't get me
Insane.
started.
What drink represents what you've experienced this week?
We'll say a spicy margarita.
Oh, it's the
Yes.
signature drink of the podcast too.
Yes.
Margarita.
Yes.
All right, so we are gonna go grab our drink and we're gonna wrap up this amazing conversation with my most incredible guest. Thank you, Rachel, for being an incredible guest this week.
My
Thanks for an
pleasure.
incredible, fun conversation. And I hope you guys will like, follow, continue to listen, and hopefully you can put some of these practices into action. And cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Not so fast. If this shit pissed you off, and it should, here are a few ways that you can get involved and take care of your community while you're at it. Mental health resources. Mental health matters, especially if you're queer, angry, or you're exhausted by all of it. The Trevor Project. It offers free 24/7 mental health support for LGBT youth by text, by call, by chat. Whether you're in crisis or you just need somebody to talk to, they are there. Open Path Collective connects you with licensed therapists who offer low-cost sessions like $40 to $70 for anyone struggling financially. And yes, they have LGBTQ and BIPOC therapists in their network. And if you're looking for something more radical, mutual aid style, check out Trans Lifeline. They don't just talk about care, they do it. They offer direct financial support for trans folks, no strings attached. Now, Columbia caving to political pressure made your skin crawl. You are not alone. Faculty are canceling courses, alumni are tearing up their diplomas, and you can stand with them by donating to legal aid groups, organizations, student protests, or just by keeping this conversation loud and on social. Don't just doom scroll. Get mad, get involved, and take care of your damn self. Till next week, Culture Caucus.